Hello, welcome to Spirit Island. Spirit Island is a tabletop board game that's recently been ported over to Steam. Came out just a couple of days ago. It's a settler destruction game, is how it's described on the box. The idea is that you are one or more spirits on some sort of remote island that's being colonized by imperialist Europeans. You have to use your spirit powers and perhaps some aid from the local natives to drive off the colonists before they can wreck the environment of the island such that you can no longer survive there as a spirit. This is a game I've played a lot of on the tabletop and gotten quite high up on the difficulty curve. There's a lot of difficulty scaling you can build in, sort of like the Ascension levels in Slay the Spire or something like that. But it's a reasonably hard game even in the base. The first game I played with some friends on the tabletop, we lost at the lowest setting. I don't expect that to happen here because I've played a lot more since then. Though, again, on the tabletop, I'll no doubt have some frustration with the interface here. It's pretty good, but it's a complicated enough game that, well, you'll see. There are some things that can get messed up. Anyway, about me, my name is Nico. I am a local game store owner in rural western Massachusetts. I've been a gamer for a long time, 3 decades plus. I've worked in the industry, store management, a certain amount of publishing, things like that for a long time. Spirit Island is one of my favorite tabletop games of all time, and I noticed that there wasn't a lot of content on it on things like YouTube, probably not surprisingly since the port just came out and it's hard to tape tabletop games. But anyway, I love it, and I'd love it if it got more attention, so I figured I'd do some videos on it as I played through. My plan is to play through starting on some of the lower difficulty settings as I get back into it. I was definitely trying to play on the same settings I played on in real life and getting kind of crushed. And I figured since I'd do that anyway, I would do videos such that hopefully other people can get into it. For this one, I'm going to play a very basic game, and the idea is that you'll be able to watch this video and maybe be ready to play yourself, but certainly know enough of what I'm talking about that you can watch future videos if that interests you or the like. There is a tutorial on this. I haven't bothered with it, but probably worth doing if you want to pick it up and play, but maybe you'll feel like you can get enough from this. Certainly I'm going to try to walk through the rules. So let's go into the new game here. There is a story-based new game option you can turn on this game where it just asks you some questions and then sets all this up for you. It seems fine, but I know what I want to do here, so I'm going to do it manually. We have the tabletop version of the game is 1 to 4 players. For each player, they play 1 spirit, and you have 1 of these boards making up the island. For this, you can play multiplayer online. I haven't tried it yet, and I'm not planning to do it for this, although I suppose if people end up being interested, I wouldn't mind. But you play multiple spirits at once and just manage them all yourself if you want, which is much easier to do on the computer since you don't have to worry about mixing up hands of cards and things like that. I usually do that. For future videos, I plan to play between 2 and 3 spirits in each game, probably. 4 seems like a little much to handle on my own. It sort of is brain melting when you get up to even 3. But I sort of like the brain melting, so I'll do it at least sometimes. 2 to 3 seems good. Having at least 2 means you can have interesting interactions between them, and yeah. Anyway, for this one, though, I'm just going to run a single spirit, and I'm going to run on a single board. The board doesn't really... You can go in and try to min-max how useful the board will be for each spirit, but certainly not worth it for this game. So I'm going to run this lovely fellow, the Vital Strength of the Earth. They are... I'm picking this one for the intro game because they're pretty good about easing you into the complexity of the game. There are a few advanced things they don't necessarily hit right away. They're pretty forgiving. This is definitely also a spirit I would be happy to recommend to a newcomer. The others being Spread of Rampant Green and Lightning Swift Strike. Those are my 3 favorite new player ones, but I think the vital strength of the earth is the most straightforward, so I'm going to go with that for this video. You can see it says difficulty 0. That means it's the base game. These down here are the knobs that you can press to increase the difficulty. You can add scenarios that increase the difficulty. I haven't played a lot with those, so I'm looking forward to building up to that point. You can also face a historical adversary, Brandenburg, Prussia, England, or Sweden, which each of the adversaries introduces a basic rule up here and then goes up to level 6, adding more and more and more complications and different rules and things like that. It is a lot like the Ascension and Slay the Spire or whatever. They're all fun and fine. I've beaten most of them to the maximum level on the tabletop, although I haven't then added in other scenarios and things like that, so I haven't done the maximum difficulty things. But even the 3 and 4 levels were proving pretty difficult when I tried them on the computer. You can also play on a fluff map instead of a balanced map, which is prettier, but I find hard to visually parse, so I haven't done a lot with that. But that increases the difficulty too, so no doubt someday I'll get to it on the computer. You can also get a strategic view on it on the computer that makes it a little easier to understand, so that'll be nice. Okay. Meanwhile, let's go into the game. We are going to see if vital strength of the earth here can hold off anonymous random European power. We don't know who they are. Okay. So here we can see this is the layout of the board. It's automatically set various things up for us. It's doing various intro things. And then it's going to send us to our first turn. So this initial setup for the board like this, you can, if you want to, you can look at the back of the spirit card to see where its influence will start out and its setup rules, and then you can pick a board that will fit well for it. Where all these various things have started on the board, I could have looked at that in the setup screen. Sometimes it's worth doing, sometimes it isn't. In any case, these things here are my spiritual influence. So Vital has 2 influence here, has this little starburst pattern because some things care about having 2, and 1 influence here. And as we go, the influence will spread over the island, and this is good in various ways. We can also lose influence if things go really badly, and that's bad both because having more influence on the island helps us out, but also because if we ever totally run out of influence, we lose. I'm not sure I've ever lost that way, but I'm sure it's possible and it's happened to someone. So there's that. These little hut mushroom-looking things are, I think, supposed to be a certain kind of hut. These are the Dahan, who are the natives of the island. They are either our friends if we are some of the spirits, or people we grudgingly tolerate if we're others of the spirits, but they're definitely good for us in this game because they will, if provoked by the invaders, they will fight back, and that means if we protect them, they'll do a lot of the burning down villages and things for us. Especially with someone like Vital Strength of the Earth, if we were playing as lightning, or you can play as the ocean or things like that, some of those spirits are very good at just destroying things themselves. This spirit really relies on the Dahan to do the heavy lifting, which is generally a good strategy, and so it's one of the reasons that I prefer them as a learning sort of spirit. Okay, finally, these little white pieces here are the invaders. We can see the 3 different types of invaders. There are explorers, towns, and cities. I think that's what those 2 are called. That's what I call them. Maybe villages for these rather than towns. I don't know. Anyway, the 2 house and the 3 house. So usually you can think of this as being twice as powerful as one of these, and this as being 3 times as powerful as one of these. And I think the way the number of figures is supposed to remind you of that. We'll get to what that means in just a minute. This is the last feature here, finally. This is Blight. Blight is generally bad and generally caused when too many invaders get into land and ravage it, but this is just the remains of a forest fire or something like that. It doesn't do anything particularly bad unless the invaders manage to add more blight here, in which case already having a blight here will cause it to cascade all over the place and be bad. We can also potentially remove it, which can be good for us. Now, the other important thing is there are four, right? One, two, yeah. There are four different types of terrain on the island. There are the jungles, the sands, the wetlands, and the mountains. Down here, we can see what the invaders are going to be doing where on their turn. They go left to right. Their turn comes sort of in the middle of ours, but they go left to right, and if there is something in the spot, they do that thing in those lands. The exception is explore. That card is face down, so we don't know what lands they're going to explore in until they get to it. Then it all moves down to the left. That probably wasn't super clear, so just to clarify, this turn, they will not ravage anywhere because there's no card there yet. They will build things in wetlands, which are these blue spots, and then they will explore in a random land type. After they do that, the build card will move to here, and the explore card will move to here. So on the next turn, they'll be ravaging in the wetlands, and then they'll be building wherever they explored. So for each land type, they go through a very predictable sequence. First they explore there, then they build there, then they ravage there. That means we know what is going to be happening in the future because we sort of know their colonial patterns. We don't know where they're going to explore, but once they've explored somewhere, we know how they're going to behave. First, they're going to build stuff, and then they're going to start trying to extract resources or whatever, and that's going to cause a bunch of damage. And so we can plan around that. And that's the basic tempo of the game. Now, the way we plan around that is that the ravage is the part that is bad for us. When the invaders ravage, they do damage to the land, and they do damage equal to the sort of total value of their pieces there. As you might remember, this one is 1, this one is 2, this one is 3. So if they were to ravage in these wetlands, they would do 4 damage. 3 for this, 1 for this. 1 damage is okay. You don't have to worry about that. So if this guy were to ravage here right now, he wouldn't do enough damage to do any harm. Just an explorer you don't have to worry about. If the land takes 2 or more damage, it gets a blight on it. If it already has a blight on it, we also have to pick an adjacent land to get a blight as well. So getting a land that's already blighted again is worth at least twice as much, maybe more, because if we then have to spread it into a land that's already blighted, we have to keep going, but don't let that happen, that's bad. So we have, currently the island is healthy. It will be healthy until we have placed up to 2 more blight. When the island stops being healthy, we don't lose, but we get some sort of bad event, and then there's more blight put on here that if it runs out, we do lose. I tend to avoid Blighted Island for as long as possible, not only for strategic reasons because we want to avoid the bad event, but also because all of the Blighted Island cards that are currently in this game are kind of annoying to deal with, and I would rather not. The good news is, if we remove this blight from the board, which we actually have a card as Vital Strength of the Earth that can do that, if we remove this blight from the board, it goes back on here, even though it didn't start out on here, so this can go up to 3 to give, which is nice. Anyway, so the focus is we want to worry about where's going to be ravaged and what we're going to do about it. As Vital Strength of the Earth, we have one thing that we can do about it without having to do any kind of active stuff at all. This little 3 and a shield here means that there is 3 defense in this land. That means the first 3 points of damage here don't count. So if the invaders were to ravage here and I had this 3, they'd only do 1 damage. As I said, 1 damage doesn't matter, so we would be fine. The way we get this is through this special rule, Earth's Vitality, for Vital Strength of the Earth. We always have Defend 3 everywhere where we have one of these double stacks of influence tokens. So if we can build up double stacks in the wetlands, at least one wetland, we will get a lot of benefit there, and we know that's where their first ravage will be. It won't be this turn, it'll be next turn. The other nice thing is we especially like areas like this, because if the invaders ravage in a land and any Dahan survive the ravage, the Dahan will fight back. Each of them does 2 damage, and taking off a piece requires damage equal to its value. So this Dahan would kill this guy if it survived the ravage. The Dahan take damage at the same time as the land does, and they each have 2 health. So, and defense protects both the land and the Dahan. So if they ravaged here and we had the 3 defense, then the Dahan would survive because it would take 1 damage out of its 2. The land wouldn't get blighted because it would take 1 damage, and then this Dahan would fight back. So that would be good. Now, it's not going to be that simple because they're going to build there this turn, as we know. So there will be more stuff there by the time we get to fighting there, but that's just an example. Okay, that's the strategic overview at the start of this game. I will get to how we actually win and things like that in a bit, because Spirit Island is mostly a game of triage early on. We're not worried about how we win for a while yet. We won't necessarily find that out until we see what cards we get access to and how the game develops. What we're worried about is limiting early damage as we figure out how we can potentially gain victory. So, the invaders have done their initial explore. We don't know where their first 2 explorers are going to go at the start of the game. We flip the first card, they do it, and then it goes into the build. That's already happened. So now it is our turn, and the first thing we do is we pick a growth option, which is this box right here. If we ever want to see what the growth options are going to be for our character, we can right-click our portrait, and that will tell us our options. We can refer to it if this box isn't around. One of the nice things about Vital Strength of the Earth is that all 3 growth options, we will pick one of these, I guess I should have said. Should be clear from there, but anyway. All 3 of Vital Strength of the Earth's growth options involve this add a presence thing, which is quite nice, because as you add presence to the board, you not only get access to things like this special power, you also become more powerful. So you can see we have 2 tracks here. We have an energy track, and we have a card play track. These little things here are our presence, and as we place them on the board, we increase our power. So if I were to place this on the board, I would start getting 3 energy per turn. If I were to place this on the board after that, I would get 4. As I place these on the board, I get to play more cards per turn. So with a lot of the characters, you have some growth options that don't involve adding presence to the board. That means you sometimes have to choose between becoming more powerful in the long term and getting a certain other growth option you want. Another reason that Vital Strength of the Earth is a nice starter spirit is because you don't generally have to make that kind of choice, because you always get to grow. Now, the downside is you only ever get to grow once in a turn, and that means you can take quite a long time to unlock particularly extra card plays, right? We're on 1 now. Even if we were to unlock this, we would still only be able to play 1 card per turn. Then we'd have to grow 2 more times to go through 2, finally get to 3 and 4. It takes a long time to play a bunch of cards with Vital Strength of the Earth. On the other hand, we ramp up very quickly in energy production, right? We get +1 here, +2 here, +2 here, +1, +1. So generally the play pattern with Vital Strength of the Earth is you relatively quickly get to 2 card plays, and then you want to be playing powerful, expensive cards. And we'll get to how we shape our spirit to do that in a bit. So first, we have to pick which ones of these we want to do. Reclaim cards gets back cards that you've already used. We don't have any cards we've already used, obviously, because it's turn 1, so picking this one would likely be a waste. Now, the downside is this one lets us place the presence the furthest away from where it already is of any of them. That's what this arrow and this number here means, is it has to be within 2 of where you already have a presence. This one has to be somewhere you already have one. This has to be within 1. If I wanted to go and fight here on the Ravage turn, I would really want to add a presence here, because then I would be able to get my 3 free defense by placing another one there next turn. But I really don't want to grow with this one on the first turn. Instead, I'm going to grow with this one. That means I'm going to take this. I can, as I said, I can choose which track I grow from. I obviously have to do the one furthest to the left. I can't just unlock the 8 immediately or whatever. I'm not so eager to get to 2 card plays that I'm willing to get no benefit this turn. I'd much rather do this one because that'll unlock the 3 energy that actually does something this turn, whereas this one it'll be longer. Vital Strength of the Earth, one of the nice things about this 3 free defense is usually what you're doing early on is using a card play to defend somewhere. Since I'm going to defend somewhere for free, I don't need the card plays as much as I would otherwise. So I'm pretty happy to just get a little bit more energy by putting this here. Then we're going to... So now that's our growth for the turn. The next thing we do is we pick our cards to play. We have energy here. It stays between turns. So if I don't use all 5 energy this turn, I'll be able to use it in the future, which is nice. We get to play up to this many cards. Again, this is off the tracks. We can look here, and we'll unlock more of them as we go. So right now I have 5 energy, and I can only play one of these cards. This is the energy cost. I can play any of the cards I like. We can mouse over it to see what it does. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's talk about it pretty quickly. You can see the red border, unless you're colorblind, I guess. Maybe then you can't tell the difference, but there's a slightly different pattern. Anyway, this red, and you can also look at the symbol there. This red border, red sort of fiery border around the cost, and then the bird and the speed, that means this is a fast card. This will happen before the invaders do their thing on the turn I play it. These, with the blue and the turtle, are slow cards. They happen after the invaders do their thing. In general, slow cards are worse, but that's not always entirely true. Since the invaders build before the slow card happens, sometimes if you have one like this that can do a lot of damage, you want to let the invaders build because then there's more stuff to trash or whatever. So then, yeah, this is the cost of the thing. This is the range. It has to target every power, with very few exceptions. Powers target lands, right? So they can target any land, range 1 of where I already have presence. And it doesn't have to be 2 presence unless it's got the double stack. And you can see the reference here. So this one has to be within 1 of somewhere where I have 2 presence, and this symbol means Dahan. This can only target somewhere where there's at least 1 Dahan. So one thing I might be have been tempted to do is try to use this to deal 2 damage here after the build and blow up the house they build. But that's not going to work. I can't target here because there are no Dahan here, and it can only target a land with Dahan. Okay. So let's look at what these do. These things along the side here are elements. Don't worry about them yet. They'll come up. So this one says invaders skip all actions in the land this turn. Pretty nice. Means they don't build there. They don't ravage there. If it comes up on the explore, they don't explore there. It's a handy sort of get out of jail free card. The downside of it is because the invaders don't ravage, they won't provoke any Dahan that are there, so the Dahan then won't kill them. It'll prevent the invaders from doing damage this turn, but it's hard to get rid of them if the land is under a Year of Perfect Stillness. So you want to be a little bit careful about using it to just delay the inevitable and then ending up in an unwinnable situation later. Guard the healing land. This is our sort of solid, straight up. I love this card. Just does everything you want. It removes a blight from the land. It defends for 4. The downside of it is it's pretty expensive. 3 is a lot of energy to pay for defend 4, but we're Vital Strength of the Earth. We have a lot of energy, and being able to just remove a blight is nice, especially because most of the cards you can get later that remove blight, you have to do it instead of doing anything else, whereas here, you get to remove it and defend. If they were to attack here, it would be perfect, because we could take up the blight and probably get enough defense to stop them. So we'll hope that'll happen at some point. This one allows you to gather things. What that means is you bring them into the land you targeted from lands that are adjacent to it. So if we were to target here, we could pull in this guy and this guy, and this Dahan and this Dahan. So basically, the only limitation is, oops, wrong card. The only limitation is all of the things you are gathering have to go to the same place, and it has to be the place you were able to target, and they all have to have started adjacent to it. So something like this, you can get a lot of different people into a little party, which is nice because, of course, we have strong places that we'd like to defend, and so being able to pull a bunch of people into them. And this one's also nice because it pulls in both invaders and Dahan, so it not only brings in the invaders that you want, it also brings in the Dahan that will stab them if you can defend them. So it's a nice multi-purpose card. I like this one a lot. It is slow, which is too bad. We'll get to why that is in just a little bit, but it is too bad still. And then finally we've got Rituals of Destruction. This one does 2 damage. It does 5 damage and 2 additional fear, which I'll get to in a bit. Don't worry about fear for now. It's related to how you win. It does 5 total damage if there are at least 3 Dahan there. 5 total damage for 3 is actually pretty legit. It's slow again, which is too bad because it means you can't use it to prevent invaders from ravaging or whatever. But it's a nice way to clean up a bunch of stuff if you've already gotten a bunch of Dahan and invaders into the same space. It's kind of awkward. It's a nice thing to be able to use turn 1 sometimes. We don't have a very good setup for it now, unfortunately. It gets a little bit awkward after that because usually if you have both Dahan and invaders in the same land, they will have fought in the Ravage, and there won't be both of them in the same land for very long. But once you can play 2 cards, you can often team it up with Draw of the Fruitful Earth or something like that to set up a nice bit of damage. Anyway, for the first turn, I would love to be able to use Rituals of Destruction to do some nice crowd control, but that's not really going to work. Neither of these make any sense. I mean, I could stop them from building somewhere for 3, but I can't even target this because it has to be within 1 of a presence, and I don't have enough. I wish I could mouse over this and it would show me the valid targets based on what's going on the board. It does that when I get to play it, but when I get to resolve it, but not when I get to choose whether to play it, which is kind of annoying. But in any case, I get it here, or here, none of which I really care about. I don't care about this person building because we're going to have 3 defense there next turn and it'll bounce off. And I might want to stop these people building, but I don't have the range, so what can we do? I could have, of course, placed this here, and then I could Year of Perfect Stillness them, but that's not any better than getting a free defense here next turn, so I'm not going to bother. What I do want to do, though, is, since I know we're going to be fighting here in 5 next turn, I'd love it if there were some Dahan there to beat people up. So I'm going to use the old Draw of the Fruitful Earth. I'll let this guy build, and then I'll draw Dahan in. So before we go on, I just want to note one other really important thing. Whenever the invaders do something, whether it's build or ravage, they will only do that if there are already invaders there. So there are some spirits that could just kill this guy. That's a great way to prevent cascading problems, because if this guy weren't here, then when they tried to build in this wetland, they just wouldn't do it because there wouldn't be anyone there to build. We can't do that with Vital Strength of the Earth now because we don't have a fast way to get rid of this guy. But depending on where they explore, it might matter a lot for Draw of the Fruitful Earth. One of the best things to do with this spirit is to use Draw of the Fruitful Earth to drag explorers out of lands where they're alone to prevent future builds. So what I'm hoping is going to happen is that they're going to explore into either the mountains or the sands, and then I'll be able to drag some of them out to prevent them from causing trouble in the future, and hopefully kill them here with the Dahan, or at least many of them. So we'll see if that happens, but that is one of the most important strategic considerations in Spirit Island, is you want to clear out lands when you can, because it prevents them from building there. They will explore into lands where they don't already have anyone, as long as that land is either adjacent to the coast or adjacent to an existing settlement. Not an explorer, but a house or a hotel, or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, that means that on the first turn, everywhere is going to get explored into. The way the boards are set up, everywhere is a valid exploration target in the first few turns. But if we can eventually get rid of this thing, then they won't explore into any of these places, or into any of these places unless there's a building that comes back, and that'd be nice. That's another useful thing you can potentially do with Rituals of Destruction on turn 1. If there were some Dahan here, I could potentially blow this thing up and prevent explorers from being able to get into here, but the setup on this map didn't end up happening. Okay, so let's go to... That's all for this turn. Let's go to this. So now we would have the opportunity to play any fast cards, but we didn't play any. So now we go over to the invaders. First they build in the wetlands. Then they explore into the sands. Okay, so that's good for me because that means I'll be able to use Draw of the Fruitful Earth to get get those explorers if I want. Okay, so we can see they have built a house in each of these places. The rule is they will always build a house unless houses outnumber villages or towns or whatever they are, and then they'll build one of these. So if they were to build here again, they'd make another one of these because they don't currently outnumber these. But if they were to build here, they'd make one of the threes. It's not... Another thing, I hope as they keep updating this game, they'll take more advantage of the ability of the computer to give you nice notes. I'd love it if you could right-click on the build and it would show you what they would build where under current conditions, or like, I'd love it if you, like the way it shows the defense on the land is great, but I wish it showed the attack power there too. I've definitely had some arithmetic errors before where I just like screwed it up. Anyway, now the invaders have done all their stuff and it's time for Draw of the Fruitful Earth. And we can also see what's going to happen next turn has been updated for our reference. So next turn they're going to ravage the wetlands, which we knew would happen because they built their last turn, and they're going to try to build in the sands. So you can see, as I said, when I am ready to play this, it shows me all the valid places to play it, and that's awesome, but I wish it did the same thing when I moused over it over there. It would be nice. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Draw of the Fruitful Earth here, and I'm going to drag in some Dahan, and I'm going to drag in some Explorers. So I get to gather up to 2 Explorers. I definitely want to grab this one. I could also grab this one. The downside of grabbing this one is, remember, each of these deals damage equal to their sort of value. These are 2, these are 1. So if I drag in this one, I'll be taking 4 damage here, and I will have defense 3 due to having my double stack. 1 damage is fine. It takes 2 damage for them to accomplish anything. So 4 versus 3, I'd be fine. If I were to drag in this guy, they'd be doing 5 to my 3, which means if I didn't want to get blighted and lose some Dahan and all that nonsense, then I would have to play a card. I think I'd rather actually just let them build here and then plan to defend there with Guard the Healing Land, because that will let me take this thing away, and otherwise I'd just have to play Guard the Healing Land here. So since I'm going to defend one of these places, I sort of might as well do it here. So I'm going to gather just this guy. And then I can gather up to 2 Dahan. I definitely want to get the full 2 Dahan. Each of the Dahan does 2 damage to the invaders when it fights back, so I want to have 2 of them here so that it takes out all of them. The question is, that means I'm definitely grabbing 1 from here. The question is whether I'd rather leave 1 here or 1 here. Because we just had sands come up, we won't have the same terrain come up again until we go to the 2 decks. So this card couldn't be a sands card, but it could be... You can see this is deck 1, this is deck 2, right? It's the number of ticks on the back. Each card is unique in each deck, so we know we can't have sands come up again next turn. We could have mountains come up, so I'll leave the mountain one just in case. Okay. Another annoying thing is I wish it made me click to end the phase rather than doing it automatically, because it means it makes it harder to undo if something goes wrong. Anyway, that was it. It goes to our next turn, so we're back to the growth. So, we need to grow here because in order to get our Earth's Vitality power, we have to have a double stack. We need the 3 defense there we were planning about around it. So that means we could use any of the 3 growth options since we already have one there. It's at range 0. We could do this, but there's no reason to do this yet. The only card in the discard pile is Draw of the Fruitful Earth. Well, having said that, it's sort of, what else am I going to play this turn? Maybe I actually want Draw of the Fruitful Earth back. So the advantage of getting Draw of the Fruitful Earth back is that I could play it here, because I know I'm going to fight here next turn anyway. I could drag these guys into here. If anyone explored in the mountains, I could get one of the explorers out of there. If they explored in the jungles, I could get an explorer out of there. I'm actually sort of liking this Draw of the Fruitful Earth thing. I don't love reclaiming... This Gain a Power card gets me access to new cards. That's obviously really nice. Right now, we're going to get Ravaged here, and I got nothing, right? I'm not close enough to play a Year of Perfect Stillness. Guard the Healing Land wouldn't be enough defense, and I'm not close enough to play it. I'm not close enough to this to play anything here. It's possible that if I got a new power card, I would get one that would let me prevent myself from losing here. That would obviously be nice, because if I lose here, this Dahan is going to die, and we're going to get blighted, and that's sad. But there aren't a lot of cards that get to target at range 2. And even fewer of them are like big defense or big damage or the kinds of things that are going to bail me out. I'm really far behind here. They've got 6 attack. There's nothing going on there. I would have to get a major. Whenever I get a new power, I get to choose a minor or a major. The majors are generally more powerful and expensive. The minors are generally cheaper. It's almost always nice to take minors early on, because when you get a major, you have to replace an existing power, whereas when you get a minor, you just get more cards. With Vital Strength of the Earth, it can be good to take a major for your first power, because you generally take a while to unlock extra card plays, and you have a lot of energy income, so you can generally afford to play one really big card. I'd certainly be willing to replace Rituals of Destruction with a major power, and there's a chance that it would bail me out here. That's almost always what I do with Vital Strength of the Earth on turn 2, is pick this one because I've set up for where I want to get a double stack, get a major power, hope that it rules. It is a little more complicated here, though, because on this particular setup, Draw of the Fruitful Earth would be really nice next turn. We know these guys are all going to be dead. If I just give up on this spot, then they'll build a town there. I know I want to play Guard the Healing Land there next turn anyway, because I would like to get rid of this Blight. If I just were to gather the Dahan in there, I could gather another Explorer in there too. We know there will be an Explorer here or here, because the next card has to be Mountain or Jungle. Again, the downside is we'd get blighted here and lose this Dahan, but losing one blight out of 2 doesn't matter, and we'd replace it next turn by picking this up off the board. The only sad thing is we'd lose a Dahan, and we don't have any good way to make new ones as Vital Strength of the Earth, and we sort of want them for a lot of reasons. But I'm going to go with this one. I think this is cool. And because I'm going to play Draw of the Fruitful Earth again, which is a 1-cost card, I'm going to have a lot of energy in the bank next turn. So I'm going to get ready to try to play 2 cards next turn. I know I want to play Guard the Healing Land here, but I'd like to be able to pick up a major power next turn. I'd like to be able to pick up a major power next turn and drop it too. So we're going to do this. We're okay here. We're not okay here, but we know about that. Then they're going to build there. This looks pretty good to me. So let's finish playing the cards. And there we go. We have no fast cards. So now they ravage in the wetlands. And it will zoom in here and tell us it's bad, and zoom in here, and it would tell us where we wanted to put damage, but they all died, so we didn't. Then they build there, which we knew, and now we get to see, oh, that's perfect. I'm happier with them exploring in the jungle because I already have an an influence here, so I can get that 3 defense for free here next turn. So, one thing you'll notice is we now have 1 fear. We get fear whenever invader buildings are destroyed. Not explorers, their job is to go out and die, so no one cares, but when the buildings are defeated, that creates fear in the colonial motherland, which is good for us. Basically, there is a fear target based on the number of spirits in the game. It's 4 per spirit in the game, so 4 with just full vital strength here. And it is also sometimes increased by the adversary card or whatever. Whenever we hit the fear threshold, any extra fear spills over towards the next one, and we move a fear card from the deck to the earned thing. We flip over the fear card after playing fast powers on the next turn after it's revealed, or the next fear phase. So if we create it with fast powers, we'll immediately flip it over. If we create it with slow powers or ravages or whatever, we'll flip it the next turn. It does something good, but we don't know what good thing it does in advance, so it's hard to plan around. But, sometimes it'll bail you out, which can be nice. The other thing is, these fear thresholds, once we go through that many fear cards, it becomes easier to win the game. So right now, in order to win the game, I'd have to kill every white piece on the board, which is doable, but pretty hard because they, especially the explorers, just show up all over the place, and it's pretty hard to get rid of them. Once we've gone through 3 fear cards and hit this, we only have to kill the buildings. Most games will end in this phase. Or, no, I'm sorry. Most games will end in this phase. Once you get to 3, you only have to kill the big buildings. Most games, I find, end there. It's pretty easy. Once you know you only have to get rid of the big buildings, it's pretty easy to sort of selectively target them and get them off the board, unless you're just hopelessly behind. Finally, if we totally run out the fear deck, then the invaders decide the island is just way too spooky for them and they just leave. And we win. That generally only comes up if you've got one of the specialized spirits that creates fear, because it takes a long time otherwise. If you're just doing it through burning stuff, you almost always win some other way first. Or I guess lose. So that's fear. The important thing to remember about it is, honestly, unless you're playing a fear spirit, it's not worth bothering about. Sometimes you'll get fear cards and it's nice. It's worth knowing if you've got some fear cards waiting to happen, because then you can sometimes, fail to defend by 1 point and hope it bails you out or whatever. But for the most part, that's all that matters. Just know that the more fear you generate, the better, and it becomes easier to win as you generate more. Okay, so now we've got this Draw the Fruitful Earth to resolve. As I was saying, what I want to do is get this guy in here, and then I don't want to get this guy in here, because once again that would... Oh, actually, I could get this guy in here. We're going to be defending 4 with Guard the Healing Land, which means having a 5th point in there wouldn't be bad, but we can also only get 2 Dahan in there, so if this guy gets in there, he'll survive. I think I'd rather just sort of have a whole bunch of people on one spot and hope that we can have a big battle there and take him out later. So I'm just going to bring that one in. Then I get to bring in 2 Dahan. I certainly, again, want to bring in 2 total Dahan, because I'd like to make sure that they all die, which takes 4 damage, which is 2 Dahan. So we're going to bring in 2. I'm going to bring in the 2 from the wetlands, I think. I generally don't like splitting them up, because 2 is better than otherwise, and since we're thinking we might have a big battle here later, I want to have a bunch of Dahan next to it I can drag in. Okay. So, here we are, turn 3, the growth phase. Now, we know that we're going to guard the Healing Land here this turn, and it's going to be great. We know we're going to end up fighting here pretty soon, so we'd like to get up to a double stack there to get the 3 defense. Now, they're going to build there, so 3 defense won't be enough, but we could get any number of cards that would add some defense, and 4 from Guard the Healing Land wouldn't be enough there without the 3, so we're still going to want the double stack there. I would like, at some point, to be able to target this stupid thing, but we know that that we're not going to want to target with anything this turn, because nothing's happening there right now, right? Sure, there's a bunch of nasty nonsense there, but since wetlands aren't on any of the cards, the worst thing that's going to happen there is exploring, and that isn't urgent. So I also really want to gain a power card at this point. I haven't already gotten one. The major powers are really good and can really swing the battle. I've got 6 in the bank, and I'm getting 3 more this turn, so I can definitely afford one. So I'm going to get a second card. I'm going to hope the major power is one that is going to be awesome, and either will let me preemptively take care of this or will let me start working on this. So when we get a power, we click the deck that we want to get it from. It will show us 4 powers of that kind. We will pick 1 to add to our collection. Again, if we pick a major power, we have to replace one of the powers that we already have. In this case, I'm pretty happy to get rid of Rituals of Destruction. It's almost always only good on turn 1, or if you have combos with it, and I don't right now, so I'm not going to be sad to see the end of that one. But almost always you end up taking a minor power first because of the need to replace and the fact that these tend to be much more expensive. Again, one of the nice things about Vital Strength of the Earth is you have a huge energy economy, you tend to be restricted on card plays, and you have Rituals of Destruction that you're generally pretty happy to be rid of, so you can quite often get a major power first, which is awesome. So now, one of the unfortunate things about the computer port is this handy undo button, which I haven't had to use yet, but is really nice if you've got a more complicated board. Unless you change the settings, which I might give in and do at some point, but unfortunately you can't change the settings without allowing actual cheating, which I don't love. But unless you change the settings, you can't undo past looking at hidden information, which means if you click on this, you can't undo beyond that. That means that, in fact, the right thing for me to do is to do this before I decide what I'm doing with my presence growth. Because if I do this, I'll have more information about which of these I want to put where. I think there's probably not a universe where I don't just put this here. In theory, if I got a major power that was just going to clear all of these things out, I might want to put it here or here to get range on this, but unfortunately, this one is range 0, so the only place I can sensibly put it is here. So, but it is worth remembering you want to do as little as possible before doing this, and since I can do them in any order, I want to pick this first. Okay. So we will gain a major power. So let's see. As you can see, these all cost 3 or 4. There are some major powers that cost 2, but I don't think there are any that cost as little as 1. So for a lot of spirits, you just can't afford these early on. Again, we get 3 every turn, so we can't play 2 of our 3s every turn forever, but we're going to ramp up pretty quickly in any case. So I always look at the fast powers first because they tend to be a lot better. This is one of my favorite cards, Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. You get to target a land with Dahan, but it can be quite a ways away from you. You do 2 damage per Dahan in the land instantly, which is awesome. You kill a bunch of stuff before the Ravage. And now, if you have, let's talk about these elements. So the way the elements work is every card has some number of these elemental symbols on the side. They always have either 1 or 0. No cards provide 2 of an element or anything like that. The elements are thresholds. You don't spend them, but you just have whatever elements are on the sides of the cards you've played this turn. So, and the game very nicely tracks that for you with these symbols here. So, if I wanted to get the extra power on the extra benefit of this, I would have to have played 3 cards in that turn with yellow symbols and 2 cards in that turn with red symbols. That does count this card itself. So I'd basically have to play 2 other cards with the yellow symbol and 1 other card with the red symbol. Currently, this is impossible for me for multiple reasons. One reason being I don't have any other cards with a red symbol. Another reason being I'm only going to be able to play 2 cards per turn. So this is not going to happen for a while. But it is very nice if it does, because then you get to move the Dahan around and also do a bunch of damage. So great. This card is great. In terms of what we would do with this card this turn, there's really not a lot, because currently the only place where we have Dahan and invaders is here, and we're going to defend here, and then these invaders are going to, the Dahan are going to kill all the invaders in the Ravage. Now, we could save ourselves from having to defend here by playing Vigor of the Breaking Dawn, but we don't actually want to save ourselves from having to defend here because we're going to use Guard the Healing Land, which will also remove the Blight and accomplish the same thing. So this is a great card, but we're not going to use it this turn. The Jungle Hungers is a pretty reasonable card. It destroys all villages and all explorers in a land. It also destroys all the Dahan there, which we'd rather not do, obviously. But, for example, we could target it here. It's slow, so they'd get to build first. So they'd build a city here, or a town, or whatever it is. But then we'd remove these two. So that means they'd only be doing 3 damage next turn, and this would be enough to defend. That would be fine. Yeah, I mean, it'd be okay. And this has to target within one of a jungle, but within one of a jungle on just one board, and on this board in particular is everywhere except here, so it's pretty good. It's also quite nice if you kick it, if you manage to make it more powerful, because you get to not destroy the Dahan and you get a city. That is 2 Moon, 3 Plant. We do actually already have 3 cards. Like, if we played this and Ritual of Destruction and Guard the Healing Land, we would get that ability. Although, we're planning to replace Rituals of Destruction with it. And we don't have a Moon on this. So, yeah, it's unlikely we'd get that in the immediate future. Vengeance of the Dead is really weird. It makes a bunch of fear. It also causes extra damage if you're destroying things in that land, but I just find it doesn't come up very often. I don't love this card. If you have the 3 red to make the damage be dealt into adjacent lands, it obviously gets much better, but it also just never ends up being all that much damage. Like, it looks like it should be, but you just don't... A Ravage where you kill 3 buildings is really good, and I'm really skeptical of the idea that you're going to play it into a place where the invaders are going to kill a bunch of Dahan just to get vengeance for it, because it's so hard to win games where you let the invaders kill a bunch of Dahan. So I don't love this one. And then we've got Accelerated Rot. This one does some damage, and if we kick it up with a bunch of yellow and green, it does a bunch more damage. Once again, we have the sort of problem that Rituals of Destruction is our card with the most variety of elements on it, and we're planning to get rid of it, so we'd probably never do that. 2 fear, 4 damage. It can only target jungles or wetlands, but right now we have, like, this is a jungle, this is a wetland, these are our problem areas. I sort of like that one. Makes some bonus fear on top of the damage, which is nice. Maybe it'll someday remove a blight and do 1,000,000 damage. If you get to kick it, it's pretty sweet. This card, to me, seems just like a better version of this one in this case, because we'd play it on the same target, and it would do an extra damage. It would cost an extra mana, I guess, but, like, it'd do an extra damage, and I think it's more likely to be better in the future because it doesn't have that fiddly thing where it kills a bunch of Dahan. This is just good, solid burn. I think Vigor is generally a better card. My concern with Vigor is we don't have a lot of good ways to move the Dahan around at fast speed, which means it sort of requires setup from Draw of the Fruitful Earth on the prior turns, but that means that if I take it here, I'm not going to cast it this turn. I probably won't cast it next turn because Draw of the Fruitful Earth is in the discard pile. And so obviously I won't be playing it this turn. So, like, we're talking about taking my Sweet Major Power and potentially playing it 2 turns from now? It seems bad. I guess, in theory, we maybe play it next turn on this spot if they explore into jungles again. Oh, but if they explore into jungles again, then the single explorer here will just die in the Ravage, and so we won't need to do anything there. Yeah, no, there's no way. So basically, this is an investment in the very far future. I'd rather have something that works now. I'm going to take Accelerated Rot. I'm going to ditch Rituals of Destruction. Then we are indeed going to put this here. Now we can play 2 cards, so we need Guard the Healing Land to fix this, and we have Accelerated Rot, which is going to go here. That means the Ravage, there's nothing here, so we'll be fine. This we're going to win because of the defense. The build, they're going to build here, and then we're going to blow it up. They're not going to build here because there aren't any of them there. Nice. We're pretty well set. Once Accelerated Rot takes out 4 health worth of invaders here, the 3 defense will be enough to save us there next turn. So generally, if you can end your turn and nothing bad is going to happen in the Ravage and nothing bad is going to happen in the next Ravage, you're in good shape. You can tell that I'm playing on an easier difficulty than I often do. Okay, so we do have a fast this time. We got Guard the Healing Land. Boom, there goes the Blight. Invaders Ravage in the Sands. 4 health worth of them and 4 Dahan. Get out. Invaders build in the jungle. That's fine. Let's see where they explore. Wetlands. Okay. There is no difference between the level 1 and the level 2 cards unless you have the advanced, unless you're facing a historical colonizer. If you're facing a historical colonizer, they have a special ability that triggers when you hit a level 2 explore. The level 3 explore cards are different for everyone. Or I should say different than the 1s and 2s, even on the basic difficulty. All of the 3s have 2 lands on them. So it'll do, say, both jungles and wetlands or whatever. There's also a single card in the 2s that hits all coastal lands. So that's the only way you can hit before 3 that you can be hitting more than one type at once. But, as usual, since you get to see them coming for a couple of turns, coastal lands doesn't usually throw that big a wrench in the works. Sometimes it's better than the others for various reasons. Anyway, that's how the Explore deck works. The Explore deck also, it's worth looking if you're upping the difficulty and facing a historical colonizer. Some of them make the Explore deck much smaller, especially by cutting out the 1s. So sometimes you don't even have 3 level 1s to go through before you start hitting the 2s, and some of them get to the 3s really quickly and stuff. It's worth looking at to be aware of if you up the difficulty. Okay, so let's play the Accelerated Rot here. It's going to do 4 damage. Now we get to see the damage interface. We've got more damage than things here, so we get to distribute it however we like. Damage doesn't carry over between turns, so there's no reason here to partially kill anything, so I'm just going to do 3 to this and 1 to this. There are some cards that do something like deal 1 damage to everything in a land, and the damage doesn't last until the end of the turn. So there are definitely situations where I want to do like 2-1-1 and leave these 2 at 1 health and let something finish them off. That's not going on here though, so we're just going to do this. Out they go. You can see we've gotten at least 4 fear here. So we've got 1 fear card waiting to happen. That means we'll get some random fear effect or another. Basically, it happens right before the next Ravage, but after our fast cards. Now, since we're at no risk at all in this Ravage, we don't really care. What is going on here, though, is that they did just explore into the wetlands, which means we're going to have to deal with this nonsense as soon as we might have had to. This is the only place left where we're in any trouble at all, obviously. So what we'd like to do is set up to fight there. Luckily, this is a great turn to reclaim cards. We've only got 1 card to play, and we don't want to play it because it's Year of Perfect Stillness, and I guess we could stop them from building here, but we just don't care. So what we're definitely going to want to do is get our other cards back because we probably want to play Draw of the Fruitful Earth and probably Accelerated Rot. Now, the problem... Oh, no. Jungle or Wetlands. We can target this. Yeah, so we're probably just going to Accelerated Rot here this turn, which means we want to get back Accelerated Rot. So that means we want to add a presence here. I'm already running hot on energy, right? Like, I had 9 stock last turn, and I'm down to 2, and I'm only getting 3. So I definitely want to start building up the energy again. I think we can pretty handily win this game without playing a 3rd card in the immediate future. I'm going to place this here. I don't think the 3 defense is going to matter. I think either we're going to win it pretty convincingly or we're going to Year of Perfect Stillness it. But I could imagine a world where we need to guard the Healing Land here and we get the Blight off, which is nice. But the bigger deal is just that I want to go further away so that I get... This way now I have the whole map covered by a Year of Perfect Stillness, which I guess would also be true if I put it here. But I could see wanting 3 here, and we're certainly not... So, one thing I forgot to mention, because it almost never comes up, but is relevant. If we get blighted somewhere where we have one or more presence, we will lose a presence. So if we were to lose a fight here, this would go away, and that would be obviously too bad. But there's just no way we're going to lose a fight here. We're going to either Year of Perfect Stillness it, or we're going to win. So I'm going to place it there. Now, we're definitely going to play Accelerated Rot, and since we're planning to fight here next turn, I want to draw the Fruitful Earth to get some Dahan in here so that we can take advantage of our win. That does mean that they're going to get a build here. We're not in any danger of, like, losing the fight because we've got our double stack 3 auto defense. As you can see, Vital Strength of the Earth, one of the reasons I think this is one of the best starting spirits is that you sort of build up a sort of a fortification, right? We've got 3 defense in all these places forever. And 3 defense is enough that we only have to start worrying about them on the second time they get explored into if we manage to empty them out. It's a little bit different here. In theory, it would be nice to get rid of this thing so that, yeah, I guess I could Accelerated Rot here, but this is also acting as a source for explorers. This house is really doing a lot. Remember, explorers will only explore into lands if they're either adjacent to the coast or adjacent to an existing settlement. So this one frickin' house is causing explorers to enter all 3 of these lands, which is pretty annoying. But anyway, what I was originally saying is that we build up these sort of fortifications. That means we have a lot of time to deal with people who show up in our back ranks here. We do eventually need to deal with them unless we're planning to win on fear, but we have a lot of time to do it. Now, it could be I'll use Accelerated Rot to take this thing out. It's sort of a shameful waste of damage, but it would kind of be nice to cut off the stream of explorers. But they're going to build here this turn. I think that ship has sailed. I don't have to decide until the slow phase anyway, but I digress. So here we are. We're done playing these cards. Let's let the invaders do their stuff. Oh, right. We get our fear card. Each village destroys an explorer in its land. Yeah, that didn't do very much. That's how the fear cards often do. We bounce off. They build there and there. We knew that was happening. And then they explore into jungles. That's sort of nice, just because that'll give me an excuse to get rid of this stuff. So, side note, you will notice each fear card gets more powerful based on what fear level we're at. So, if we were to have already gotten to here, this would have done something much better. If we were to be at 3, it would be even better. So fear basically gets better and better the more you generate. Again, you can't really take all that much advantage of that with Vital Strength of the Earth because it's not a fear engine. But there are spirits that try to really thrive on causing fear. Okay, so we're going to Accelerated Rot somewhere. It's now pretty tempting to do it here because it would totally clear this out, and that means they wouldn't build their next turn. We'd miss out on 1 point of damage, and we'd have to face their full strength here. Their full strength is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means 3 defense from our special power and 4 defense from Guard the Healing Land would be enough. So that'd be fine. So that means I am going to swap over to going Accelerated Rot here so as to take out this stuff and not deal with it in the future. Now, we also have Draw of the Fate of the Fruitful Earth. We're definitely going to do that here. We're definitely going to bring in these 2 Dahan. Now, we could bring in this guy. If we bring in this guy, we get the advantage that they don't build anything in the jungle because no one else is there. We get the disadvantage that suddenly they're at 9, which means Guard the Healing Land plus our passive ability is no longer enough to prevent them from killing something there. But we don't really have a lot to do next turn that we're excited about. Sorry about that. We don't have a lot to do next turn that we're excited about with our second card anyway. And what we could do... No. See, what I was going to say was that we could play the card we didn't take there, which is to say Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. But we can't do that because we didn't take it. So that means we don't pull this guy in because it's going to ruin everything, and I don't want to deal with it. So we're not going to gather that guy. We will gather these things. And we are... Guard the Healing Land is what we need to play here. We're not particularly excited about running back either of these, especially because we're a little low on energy to replay. We couldn't play both Accelerated Rot. We could if we unlocked this. I guess we could bring back... We could reclaim and bring back Accelerated Rot. Then we'd be looking at playing it here or here to clear out something. We'd probably just clear out this stuff. But I think we probably want to try to beat this in the Ravage, or I guess we'd Accelerate Rot here. Accelerated Rot would be fine this turn, but I think we probably want to try to beat... We're going to try to beat this in the Ravage, which we certainly can. We could use Accelerated Rot to clear this out. We could also take this advantage to get a new power because we want to add a presence at range 0 this turn anyway. One of the challenges with Vital Strength of the Earth is that when you get a new power card, you have to add a presence somewhere you already have it. So if you have a turn like this where you want to do that anyway, it's often worth it. So I'm going to do that. We have already good expensive cards, so I'm going to do this. The question is whether I want a minor or a major power here. Sorry about that. I should silence this. Whether we have a minor or a major power here. And the minor, if we get a minor power, we're more likely to get something that's going to be able to get rid of this guy or let us win here. If we get a major power, we're looking to just actually clean everything up here. It's close. I think I want a minor just because I don't really want to replace a Year of Perfect Stillness, and the only other card I could really replace is Draw of the Fruitful Earth, which is our cheapest card. If we're getting a minor here, though, maybe we'll think again. Maybe we actually want to move towards unlocking a third card play so that we can weave in that minor and Draw of the Fruitful Earth more often. Yeah, because we'll make some extra energy this turn. I think I like that. So let's do that. Take a minor power. Once again, I really should put this down after I get the minor, although because I have to put it at range 0, I'm going to do this. But I guess depending on what minor we get, we might want to actually unlock the 6 instead. So let's see what power we're getting first, because we can't undo past that. 2 damage or remove a blight at slow. Ooh, this one's pretty nice. Defend 2 in every land where the spirit has things. So that would basically get our passive defense up to 5 for a turn. But that doesn't really help us this turn because 5 isn't enough, so we're going to have to play Guard the Healing Land anyway. I think I probably want this to gather. So the way this works is you gather 3 Dahan, then you push them. Since it targets a land and you do it from both, what that really does is say I could target here and then I could move them in and then move them out. So that basically lets you move Dahan 2 spaces, which is a lot of movement. And since I'm mostly relying on Dahan to actually kill people for me, that has some pretty good value. The downside of it is I guess I could move these Dahan out into here, but the problem is this is the only place getting ravaged next turn, and we've already got the Dahan there. So it's not clear. I could move these guys out, but there's still going to be stuff left here. I don't know about that. We could also just do 2 damage, push an Explorer. That's sort of nice because you either take out an Explorer or you take out a village and then push an Explorer out or something like that. It's reasonable. We also, every spirit, this hasn't come up yet and almost never does with Vital Strength of the Earth, but every spirit has an innate power that triggers once you start getting enough elements. Vital Strength, and it gets more powerful the more of the elements you have. right? So this lets people repeat powers. The problem with it is it's so hard. You can't even get the lowest version of it until you can play 2 cards. And even then, it's pretty hard to get it. Although we could maybe get it this turn. If we could get something that had yellow and black and green on it, we could get it this turn. Yeah, but that's the problem. You almost always need 3 cards to get this, and it's just so long before you get 3 card plays with this guy, and then you get to repeat a 1. It's good if you have a teammate, because your teammate probably has ones that are worth doing. With this guy alone, you generally don't. There are spirits that rely much more on their special element abilities. The fact that Vital Strength doesn't is another reason I think they're a very good pick for your first game. Anyway, this does have green and black, which means that if we played it with... Do we have a card in our discard pile? No, we don't have anything with all 3 of these on it, which means we still couldn't... It still wouldn't let us team up to 2. But I think we probably want... I might regret... Encompassing Ward gets much better if you have more players, because the board is much bigger, and so there are some spirits that are very good at spreading their power out very thinly over a large area, or even moving it around. And if that happens, Encompassing Ward can be awesome, because 2 is enough to defend this kind of setup, which happens a lot. And you can just get a lot of value out of it by targeting a teammate who has a good ability to go wide. It's not... Again, here we're mostly talking about upping 3 to 5. 3 to 5 matters. It would prevent... If you add a city on this, that's 6, so 5 prevents that. But our main problem here is that we can stall for a long time, but we can't get rid of stuff. There's going to be no blight left on the board. These elements are better. I'm going to take this one. Okay. And so... Do I actually want... That's a situation... We're not going to play 3 cards this turn. So this is a situation... The question is, do we want to play 3 cards next turn? What's going to happen next turn? No. Next turn, they're just going to be ravaging here plus some other nonsense. I think we just want to unlock more... See, yeah, that was actually... It was good that I looked at the power before I picked where to put this, because... That's not a card I'm really excited about weaving in as a 3rd card regularly. Though, if we could do a 3rd card, we could play, like, Accelerated Rot plus Rouse the Trees and Stones plus Guard the Healing Land does get us this, which would let us copy Rouse the Trees and Stones, which deals 2 more damage, which is okay. But the problem is that's 8 energy. And we're using our whole income this turn, so we can't afford to do that next turn anyway. So let's get the energy up. Okay. I have to say, I feel like talking through this makes me play better, which makes me optimistic that I'll do well on future videos where I'm actually facing harder challenges. Okay, so those are our cards. We know what we're doing. Yep. Okay. We're going to guard the Healing Land here. We got all the blight off the board. How nice. Let's get this Fear card. Each player chooses a different land with Dahan. Invaders take 1 damage there. We might as well take out this Explorer for free. It's going to be pretty easy to kill the thing it builds in the Ravage next turn, but there's no reason not to just get rid of it. Over here, we've got 4 damage coming in. I think I'd rather get rid of this thing, because now that we have this, 2 damage evenly kills one of these. I guess, yeah. Yeah, that seems... It's like a reasonable argument. No build, always nice. And then they get that Coastal Lands card I was talking about. Now, this is one of the reasons Coastal Lands is often a very good flip, is you see they're going to ravage here. They just explored into this jungle. This guy's going to ravage there, which is just pointless. I mean, it's great for me, but this guy's going to do 1 damage here, which does nothing, and then the Dahan are just going to kill him. And then he's not going to be able to build because he's going to be dead. So that's going to be great. For Rouse the Trees and Stones, I could just kill this guy. The advantage of that is that we would get no builds next turn at all except here. And that would be pretty good. I think that's probably right. We obviously lose out on the damage, right? Like if I did it here or here, then the 2 damage would be meaningful. And there's some value to that. But I think given how much trouble we're having getting things off the board, killing this thing is going to be worth just as much, and they're going to ravage there soon, and I don't have a good way to move the Dahan. This I can clean up later with my big nuke card that has to target wetlands. Yeah, let's get this guy. Okay. We're very close to winning this one, although it's going to take... No, because we're going to flip this card and go to 2 as soon as we generate 1 more fear. And then we have to get all the buildings off the island. And getting all the buildings off the island, we're quite close. We need to reclaim cards here. I mean, I guess we don't need to, because we don't really need to play anything. We would be fine this turn if we played nothing at all. But, or like we could Year of Perfect Stillness here just to prevent a build. But I don't think there's any reason not to. I want to get back Accelerated Rot. I definitely want to use that on something. And just to finish the thought, the other thing I'd want to do that turn is gain a power card, but remember, there's this important range 0 on this. I don't want to gain a power card that turn at the expense of having to stack up to a 3rd on a thing that I don't need. Not, I guess, that I need... I mean, I'm pretty well fortified. Let's think about where we want to place. So now I'm definitely going to place this one. At 6 energy per turn, it's hard to spend it all, which means I'd like to get up to a 3rd card play. We're going to put it one of these 3 places. So in terms of the Explore deck, we've already gotten Jungle, we've already gotten Coastal Lands, but that means either of these are just as likely. And we've already gotten Wetlands, yeah. Either of these 2 are... So I don't want to put it here. I guess I'll put it here because I don't have one on a Sands yet, and that seems as good an argument as any. Okay, so we still only have 2 card plays this turn. There's no trouble areas at all, so I think I just want to play my slow cards. I guess there's a question as to whether I'd rather have Draw of the Fruitful Earth than one of these. Next turn, so I can't... Oh, no, because Draw of the Fruitful Earth is slow. Yeah, this is actually going to be really good. I'm going to actually reconsider where I put this token, because what I want to do, I'm going to put it here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to Draw of the Fruitful Earth this turn, and I'm going to pull people into here for a big fight. And when I do that, I'll be able to pull the Explorer out of whichever of these 2 it ends up on. So I'll potentially want the defense here, where an Explorer will be sticking around. So then the question is, do I want Accelerated Rot or do I want Rouse the Trees and Stones? I think now that we're going to use Draw of the Fruitful Earth, we're going to have 4 Dahan here, which is going to be enough that we're just going to win a fight here and kill all these things. Which means I think I'll use Rouse the Trees and Stones. I don't need to care very much about this Explorer, and if I'm going to take this thing out, I might as well do it cheaper. Okay. No fast cards, so we'll go straight to the non-existent Ravage. Well, technically, this guy foolishly picks a fight with 2 entire tribes of Dahan as a single Explorer. Classic white people. Then we've got just the 1 build, and then we get to see Sands. That's too bad. Mountains would have been much better. No, it wouldn't actually have mattered. Mountains would have been much better because there's a Dahan here that's ready to kill whatever gets built there. But we've had quite good luck this game, I would say, with where they invaded. So with the explorers. So I'm not going to complain. So as discussed, pull everyone into here for some big battle, and we will rouse the trees and stones here and take out this village. Sadly, just a little too late to prevent the explorer there. But I think we should now win because we've just gotten to terror level 2, which means we don't have to worry about these 2 random explorers. And instead, we just have to clear out everything here. We've got 8 attack power worth of Dahan, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 health worth of buildings. So we just have to make sure that we don't lose any Dahan there. Now, that said, we are actually currently set up to lose a Dahan there. We could, of course, lose a Dahan there and still win, because... No, because they'd build first. No, we actually need a little bit of help here to be able to win this turn. We could always Year of Perfect Stillness here, but that would be embarrassing. You don't want to have to prevent a fight that you set up for. So, neither of the cards in our... Wait, what? What are we pushing? Why are we pushing someone? I'm so confused. Why does it say... Oh, right. Because after I blow up a place with this thing, I get to push someone out of it. I don't think I care. I mean, I guess I'm required to, but I don't think it matters at all. Okay. Now we're at the point where I thought we were, which is deciding the growth option. So neither of the cards in our graveyard help us. So I think we need to gain a power card and add a presence. We need very little help here. We just need 1 point of defense. The question is whether a major power or a minor power is more likely to get us the equivalent of that. We can afford either of them. That's not the problem. I could go through and do a lot of math probably and figure it out, but that sounds like a really bad idea, so I'm just going to sort of decide. I'm going to go for a major power on the grounds that if we somehow have to use Year of Perfect Stillness here, I would rather have a major going forward. Well, that doesn't appear to have gotten us there, which is too bad. So this is some weird fiddly support power. It lets you target off of your friend and they get a power card and you get a power card. Obviously not so good if you don't have a friend. Not so sure it's good anyway. If you can kick it, it's reasonable. We've got Paralyzing Fright, and then we've got some slow stuff. This is one of those cards that does 1 damage to every invading structure, which means you might want to put partial damage on things to last until the end of the turn. It's about the only thing notable about it. This thing replaces a bunch of stuff. I suppose some number of these might let us win this turn. Might let us win this turn while still losing the fight there. So I can minimize that and then to look at the board, and then I click on this to look at it again, which is nice. So that's kind of too bad. I wonder if we can get... We don't have 3... Can we possibly get... So the other thing I'm looking at here is if we could somehow get this 2/3/2 power, then we could copy Guard the Healing Land to get 3 more defense here, which would do it. The problem is Guard the Healing Land... Well, hold on. So Guard the Healing Land has a sun, so we need 3 Earth. So basically, we need to get something with Earth, Sun, and Plant off of this, which doesn't work. Okay. So we can't do that. So let's think about... The other question is whether we can let ourselves lose here, which would be sad, because I hate it when the Dahan die. and I guess it's sort of sad to lose our thing too, whatever. But we could let ourselves lose here by 1 point. Basically, we'd have 7 defense here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which means we're 1 explorer off from just winning here and winning the game. That was probably a good reason to pick minor power. There are so many minor powers that mess with a single random explorer that probably that would have been a good bet, but whatever. I think it was a close call because, again, going forward, I'd rather have... If I didn't get there, I'd rather have a major. We could also just hope that this... so many fear cards represent 1 explorer's worth of value, right? Like, this is one of those places where it's actually close enough that it's worth being like, okay, maybe the fear card will just bail us out. The other option is, let's say we play Guard the Healing Land here. We take a Blight, which we don't care about. We lose one of these, which doesn't matter because the defense is already applied, and we lose 1 Dahan. That means the Dahan that fight back deal 6, leaving 1 of these things alive. We can clean that up with Accelerated Rot, or whatever card we get off of here, but probably just Accelerated Rot. We can clear that up with Accelerated Rot. That means... yeah, so that means if we just prevent the build here, say with a Year of Perfect Stillness, or I guess we could take Paralyzing Fright to do it, does the same thing, but it's more stylish, whatever, then we'd still win. And much though I hate losing the Dahan, that's just clearly the right thing to do. It's also it's also still possible, of course, that the fear card will bail us out such that we don't lose the Dahan. So we're going to do that, and that means it really doesn't matter what we take here, so we'll just replace that with that because it's cooler. And we don't even need the 3 card plays, right? No, we do need the 3 card plays. 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. Yeah, we'll have enough energy, so that's fine. We'll just put this somewhere. And we will play these 3 cards. So then we Guard the Healing Land here. We Paralyzing Fright here. This actually makes 4 fear, so it gets us a 2nd fear card too, which makes it even more likely that one of these is going to bail us out here so we don't embarrassingly lose a Dahan. Oh, we managed to trigger this. Hey, look, I can repeat a power card of cost 1 or less. Oops. Yep, every player removes an explorer or a village from a coastal land. Well, obviously I will remove this. I mean, I could just remove the explorer. It doesn't matter. I'll remove the village. And then... yeah, okay. So, in fact, we got several bailouts, and we're fine. Yay! Game over. Victory. There are no buildings on the island. And we're at terror level 2. Now we are treated to this nice little animation of all these pieces leaving our island, and maybe I get some Steam achievements. I don't remember whether I've... I think I did that in testing for this video. Yeah, so I didn't. But whatever. So then we get the ending. Awesome. That was our first game of Spirit Island. Thank you for watching. I will be working probably on Monday on the next video, unless I get really ambitious after work again. But I hope people enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave feedback. Thanks again.